Hi, I am okay. Apparently, I'm live. Okay, so I am live a couple minutes early. I've never done a live stream before. I am live on YouTube and on Instagram. So, again, I've never done a live stream before, so I'm just wanted to get on a little bit earlier than I said I was going to, just so I could figure out what's going on. Um, but as we are waiting, I'm just going to quickly tell you what is um, going to be going on in this live stream. So basically, as we're waiting for more people, I'm going to say a little bit about myself, um, like a fun fact that you guys might not know, um, and then I will read the first chapter of my novel, and you guys can actually follow along if you go to Amazon, and I will put a link in the comments. I'm not quite sure if I can do it on Instagram, but I can definitely do it for YouTube. And I will put a link in the comments so you guys can follow along and you can read along. And then after we, I go read the first chapter, might not read the entire chapter as it is long, so I might stop at the first section break. It just depends on what you guys want, see what we are feeling. And then after that, I'll do a Q&A if you guys have questions. If not, we can end it there, and that's totally cool. But I'll just wait a little bit longer just until the actual time for it to start. As I said, I'm doing this sooner than I had planned, just because I've never done live before on any social media account, and I'm just trying to, figure out how to do it. So I'll wait for a little bit longer before I start doing it. Dang, it's so hot out here. My thermos is already getting hot. Where I live, it's been like in the hundreds nonstop. It's a lot. It's very, very. It's hot here. It's very hot, but I had to come outside because family is loud. And one more minute before the live supposed to be starting. Again, I'll just wait a little bit before I say, before we get into the actual bit of the live stream. Let's just wait. Okay, it is officially 5 o'clock. I'm just pulling something up. Right. Dang, the cicadas. Shush! Sorry if the cicadas are loud. I can't do anything about them. Like, at all. Maybe my shush silenced them. Nope. Nope. It did not silence. Well, I'll wait until 5:02, and then I'll start saying a fun fact about myself. Even if no one comes on and joins this live, I can at least use the video and you guys can watch it later. That's totally cool. I just wanted to do this as a fun thing since I already did a launch party at my house with some close friends and with my family. So that was really fun. We had some sandwiches. We had some chips. Specifically, we had barbecue chips, like barbecue Pringles, because that's my main character's favorite chip. She really enjoys barbecue Pringles. That's her favorite chip. But yeah, I'll wait until 5:02. And I just wanted to bring a bit of the launch day stuff to you guys, just give you guys an opportunity. This is a really chill thing. So if no one shows up, whatever. This is for me. Okay. Right. Well, it is 5:02 Central Standard Time for me, so I guess I'll just say a little bit about myself. I feel like every single person has a fun fact that most people know about the game Two Truths and a Lie, and I feel like everyone has that one truth about them, this one crazy story or whatnot that they always use for that game. So I wanted to share with you guys what my favorite truth about me that I always use in Two Truths and a Lie, because everyone thinks it's a lie, but it's the truth. Um, so I was very young, and my family was visiting Italy. We had a really fun trip to Italy. We went to Venice, we went to Rome. We obviously got pizza and we ate a lot of gelato. A lot of gelato. It's really hot in Italy. So we were visiting Pompeii and the surrounding areas, and we obviously, if you're visiting Pompeii, you got to visit Mount Vesuvius. And fun fact, Mount Vesuvius is still an active volcano, so it still can blow up. It can still erupt and wipe people out. Actually, there was a recent eruption, like not obviously in recent years, but since recording of Pompeii, there's been an eruption. I don't remember when it was. Anyway, we were visiting Pompeii, and we, as a family, went up Mount Vesuvius, and we climbed. So they have this wide path that's carved into the volcano, and it goes all the way around and up to the top so that you can actually go and look into the crater. It was really cool. Well, I was very little at the time, and I was wearing a flower dress, one, because I wanted to look pretty, and I thought this dress was adorable, and I loved it, and two, because dresses were a lot cooler to wear in the hot temperatures. So I was walking up Mount Vesuvius with my family, wearing this floral dress, when my dad says, "Oh, look, a bumblebee's on your arm." Being the little child that I was, I freaked out, and I completely got terrified, and the bee just it because I was like, "Ah!" It stung me. It stung me, and it hurt really bad. And that was the day I found out that volcanic mud helps with bee stings, because my mom poured some water into the dirt on the volcano, rubbed it in, and it was helpful. So that is the fact that I use in Two Truths and a Lie. Uh, and that is, I was stung by a bumblebee on an active volcano. The event itself wasn't that exciting. A lot of people get stung by bees, but it's the location. The location's everything. Okay, so there's still, from the looks of it, there's still not really anyone here, and that's okay. I can still share this video with you guys, and you guys can watch it later. It's so cool. It's cool. So I figured I could begin by reading the first chapter of my book, which again, you can also read along. If you're joining after this live is over, that's cool too, and you can go on to Amazon, look up the Melissa Curae Chronicles, or just Melissa Curae, and I'll put into the comments on both Instagram and on YouTube how to spell Curae. So I'll just put in like that. So that's for that. I put it on Instagram. If you guys want to see it, I'm putting it on the YouTube side now. And that's how you spell Melissa Curae. You can literally just look that up, and one of the first things you'll find is my book. It will look a little bit like, it will look, I don't know, for people on Instagram, you get to see what it kind of looks like. But sorry, YouTube, I can't change the camera. So if you guys want to read along with me, you can. And so, whoop, there's a flying thing. Something flying. So the first chapter of my of the Melissa Curae Chronicles: A Magical Aspect. Chapter 1: Keeping Dangerous Demons in Glass Jars. Seems legit. Horse! Melissa Curae cried with glee, pointing out the stallion as they drove by. Horse! Her brother Sammy said, a minute too late. I got it! I got the horse! It's mine! What? No, that's my horse. I called it. I called it first. That's how the game works. Whoever calls it first gets to have it. And I called it. It's mine. Sammy began to pout. No, there's another horse behind it. You missed it, so I called it. No, there wasn't. Yes, there was. No, I looked there. Melissa, her mom, Catherine, said. But Mom, Catherine turned and pointedly looked at Melissa. Melissa sighed. Fine, I have 20 horses, so I'm going to win anyway. Well, I have 30 horses, Sammy said. No, you don't. You have 15. No, I have 30. No, you don't. You have... Melissa, her mom said, slightly louder than before. That's enough. Stop arguing. But Mom, he's cheating. If he can't play by the rules and stop making things up, then he shouldn't be allowed to play. We're here, Melissa's dad, Stephen, announced, making Catherine sigh with relief. Melissa got out of the car, grabbed her bag, threw it over her shoulder, and slammed the door. Almost immediately, she kicked off her sandals and wiggled her toes in the sand. She sighed contentedly. It felt good to put her feet into the sand, especially after hours of driving with her brother. Melissa shoved her hair out of her face and put on her big, floppy white hat to block the sun from her eyes. Melissa, darling, her mother put a hand on Melissa's shoulder. You need to get control of your temper. I know it's hard, especially when you know you're right, but please try. Can you at least try to get along? Melissa sighed. She was not in the mood to have that conversation. Fine. But Mom, look. She pointed to Sammy, who had shoved his head so far into the sand that his shoulders were almost covered. Her dad was trying his best to get him out, but he was not having any luck. That's why I have a hard time getting along, because I have to live with that. Her mom shot her a glare. Kidding! I'm just kidding. I'm going to head over to the rocks. I don't know how long I'm going to be, so have the picnic without me. I don't mind. But save me some barbecue chips, Melissa said. Okay, but be careful. I mean it, her mom replied with a look of concern. I will, Melissa reassured her. Her mom turned back to help her dad extricate Sammy from the sand. Melissa knew it was safe. Every year, once a year, they came here to Melissa Beach, which she was named after, for the Curae family vacation. Every year, once a year, her mom told her to be careful. Hold on, just taking a quick break. It's really hot. She walked to the rocks that were almost always exposed. When there was a really bad storm or the tide was particularly strong, the water could sometimes get high enough to submerge the rocks. Anyone who was still on them would be stranded. However, that had not happened in over 10 years, so she was not worried about getting flooded. Melissa climbed. She loved it up there. She could see the sea clearly. She loved how the wind blew across her face, how the rocks always seemed to be continually changing. She also liked to go to the water's edge, racing the waves back and forth, looking in the tide pools as she went, and taking in the sharp, refreshing, salty smell. She had just finished searching through a tide pool for any interesting creatures that might have been hiding in them when she saw a chain bolted between two rock fissures up the beach. Dangling on the chain was a sign that read, "No one beyond this point. Camp members only." That's funny, she thought. That's never been there before. She turned to go back when a fan-like shape caught her eye. Turning back, she looked more closely. She squealed with delight. What she saw just beyond the chain was a fully intact rose nautilus shell. The shell had several white petal-like parts extending from the pink central spiral. Melissa had a large collection of shells, but never dreamed of possessing this particular one. The nautilus, which looks like it belonged to the Paleozoic era, were an endangered species. To have a shell that rare, she glanced back to her family on the beach. No one was watching. She ran over and ducked under the chain. Picking up the shell, she carefully dusted off the sand and put it in her bag. As she turned to go back, she noticed a trail winding around the rocks. Hoping that perhaps it would yield more unique shells, she decided to follow the path that led beyond the sign. A looming cave towered over her. That definitely had not been there the year before. At the mouth of the cave stood two men, one on each side, standing at attention, like guards. The man on the right was muscular with a nose ring, the kind a bull might wear. He had the build and confident demeanor that brings order and quiet to a large crowd just by walking into the room. The second man was tall, with a jagged scar running across his nose. The lines above his brows were deep and permanently furrowed in a glare. However, he had a sort of grace in how he held himself, like a ballerina, a tall warrior ballerina. There was something odd about the two, but Melissa could not decide what. When Melissa looked closer, she realized it was their shadows. Shadows normally look like a silhouette of a person or a blob. They were more defined than blobs, but they did not look like people. She quietly inched closer, trying to get a better look without drawing any attention to herself. Just one more look and she'd go back to her family. Stepping down, her foot hit a small pile of rocks. The rock slipped under her feet. Falling hard on her face, she yelped loud enough to be heard over the waves. Frantically, she searched for a place to hide. Close to her was a rock large enough to hide her entire body, but she was not fast enough. "Hey!" shouted the man with the nose ring. "What do you think you're doing?" She tried, but was interrupted by the second man. "Didn't you read the sign?" Before she could answer, a woman's voice shouted, "Melissa!" Her mother came into view, slightly out of breath. "Melissa, there you are!" Catherine quickly switched from scolding her for straying so far to fawning over her, trying to see if she was okay. "Catherine?" Catherine's head snapped up mid-interrogation, her gaze falling on the man with the nose ring. Her grip on Melissa's shoulders tightened until it hurt. "Joshua. It's been a long time." "I wish it could have been longer," her mother replied. Catherine's chest heaved slightly and her eyes narrowed. "Melissa," her mother said, still not loosening her grip on her shoulder, "we're leaving." Her mother guided her away from the cave. However, as they turned out of view, Melissa caught the man named Joshua staring at them with what seemed to be a look of a powerful yearning, but she did not know what for. They walked in awkward silence until they got back onto the sand with Melissa's father and Sammy. Her mother took a deep breath. "Melissa, you will never go back to the rocks. Is that understood?" "Who were those people? How does that man know you?" Her mom closed her eyes as if she was trying to block a bad memory. "Please just do as you're told." Her mom walked away, leaving Melissa to stare at her in shock. Her mother knew that the rocks were important to her. She spent every vacation among the rocks. It's where she had found her love of rock climbing, her love of the ocean, her love of geology and speleology. I always mess up the pronunciation of that word. Speleology. These rocks were where all these things started, but they were more than that. Among the rocks, she pondered the problems of life, but there was something else about them too. Something different and exciting, something almost magical. Didn't her mother understand how important they were to her? Melissa started to turn away from her family, toward the rocks, but she paused. Her mother had seemed truly frightened, though, and Melissa had never seen her so shaken. "Fine, I won't go back," Melissa decided, catching up to her mom. "Thank you. Now help me and your dad clean up. I think it's best that we leave the beach and get dinner early. You can even pick out the restaurant." Now Melissa was really worried. Her mother would only let Melissa pick the restaurant if she was trying to comfort her, or if she was hiding something. Okay, so that's at a section break of the book, of the first chapter at least. So far, we don't really have that much people on here. So for those who are, you want to continue the first chapter or leave it at that? I'll leave it up to you as I get some water because it's really hot. So I'm learning a few things about this live. I haven't done anything live before, so this is just, as I mentioned at the beginning, but so this is a learning experience for me. One, don't come start your life before you promise to do your life. That might be a good thing to do. Not start early. And then yeah, and then let people actually get on. But I think I'm going to continue with the first chapter. Just going to get one more drink of water. And the fun thing about this is that if not really anyone sees this live, I can come back, I can edit it, and I can just have it, me reading the book. Okay. Melissa emptied the contents of her bag onto the bed, sorting through the different items she had found on the beach. Her haul was smaller than it had been in the past, but the rose nautilus shell made up for it. However, as she emptied her bag, the nautilus shell was nowhere to be found. She emptied her bag completely, turning it inside out, but still, no shell. Her mind raced. Where could it have gone? After they left the beach, they had gone to the cabin to drop off their things and quickly clean up for dinner. Then they went to eat, but Melissa had left the bag. She searched the entire cabin. She even completely cleaned out the car, a task she loathed, especially after they had been at the beach getting it all sandy. Still, no shell. Her dad found her as she awkwardly tried to look underneath the back seats of the car. Lose something? He asked. A shell. A one of the kind, fully intact. Ugh, hold on, I'm stuck. She wiggled a bit until she was able to sit and look at him. I can't find my rose nautilus shell. He sat next to her, his eyes lighting up at the name of the shell. A rose nautilus, huh? That's a heck of a find. Yeah, it was, until I lost it. I've looked everywhere. It just. Melissa paused. When she had come across the cave of those strange men, she had tripped. Maybe the shell had fallen out then. I think I might have left it at the beach. Can you take me back? Please? Stephen frowned. I don't know, Mel. I have to agree with your mom. It's best we stay away from the beach. But I know exactly where it is, Melissa pleaded. I heard Mom grumbling that we forgot to buy some milk for breakfast tomorrow, so you need to leave anyway. It's on the way to the store. Please just drop me off so I can quickly get it while you go shopping. It's not safe. Melissa grabbed his hand and started to rock back and forth with each word like she used to do when she was little. Please, 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 please. Oh, there you are, Melissa's mom said, coming outside. You're already at the car. It's like you read my mind. Do you mind quickly running by the store and getting some milk? We don't have any. Mom, can I go? Melissa asked. I don't see why not, Catherine said. Melissa sprang up. I'll grab my hat and bag. She rushed to her room and grabbed her bag, put on her hat, and was about to go back outside when she hesitated. Her shell was by that cave, and the men standing guard really freaked her parents out. Melissa went over to her bed and felt underneath it. She used to be able to fit under and hide there for hours, but those days had since gone. One summer, she found she was just too big to fit under the bed anymore. So now she found herself reaching at nothing until her hands brushed against something hard. A quiver of arrows wrapped around a bow. She untied the quiver and bow so that she was holding them separately. The bow was slightly too small for her. She had practiced her She had brought her competition bow on vacation to be able to practice while at the cabin. That is the sentence, okay. However, this bow had one advantage the other one did not. When he pressed a certain button, the bow would collapse on itself and could fit comfortably in almost any bag. Its matching arrows could also be folded up. Melissa had received this almost magical bow on her third birthday. She did not know how it worked, but it was certainly very convenient. Pressing the button, she placed it in her bag along with a few arrows. Hopefully, whatever her parents were afraid of would not be too much trouble. There's a section break here, so I'm gonna get a drink some water. You guys should drink some water too. Stay hydrated. I accidentally swallowed ice. Her dad pulled into the parking lot of the grocery store. Melissa had tried to enter. Oh, I'm sorry. Melissa had tried the entire drive to convince her father to take her back to the beach, but he had put his foot down. It was too dangerous, and that was final. After they parked, Stephen looked at her. I know that losing the rose nautilus shell is a huge loss for you, but I think not going back is for the best. His phone dinged as he got a text. Your mom just texted another thing to get from the store. We started with just milk, and now we have to get about 40 other things. We aren't at the cabin long. What could we possibly use all this for? He shook his head, then looked back to Melissa. Getting these things will take a while. There's a candy store 2 streets down. How about you go and get yourself a treat while I get everything on the list? Something to make up for the loss of your shell. Oh, and get something small for your brother as well. He's pretty bummed that we couldn't be at the beach longer. Make sure your phone's not on silent so I can contact you if I need to. You mean Leroy's Historical Candy Shop? They have that game filled with old-fashioned games, right? Game room, sorry, it's a game room. Is it okay if I stay to play the games until you're done? Stephen thought about it for a moment. I don't see why not. I'll pick you up there then. The wind. They stepped out of the car and her father gave her some cash. At first, Melissa headed toward the can shop as she had been told to do, but then she stopped. She knew her father. He took at least an hour to buy just 3 items from the store, and the list her mother had given him was pretty long. The beach was only about 20 minutes away walking. Melissa could easily go to the beach, grab the shell, and get back to Leroy's Historical Candy Shop to get the candy and play some games while her father was still getting groceries. She turned around and headed toward the beach. Soon Melissa was back at the cave. The 2 men were still guarding its mouth. She ducked behind the rock she had found earlier. Crouched there, breathing heavily, she waited for any indication that she had been seen. Eventually, she poked her head out from behind the rock just in time to see the guards had headed inside the cave, laughing. There it was, near where she tripped, the shell that caused all of this. She picked it up and put it in her purse, this time making sure it remained closed. She turned to leave, but something nagged at her. That man with the nose ring had known her mother, and Melissa could not get either of her parents to talk about it. Her parents talked to her. They trusted her. And she them. They had no secrets. Yet there was something that left her parents more terrified than she had ever seen in her entire life, and they wouldn't even look her in the eye. She had already bent some of the rules. Why not a little more? Maybe she could find out who that man was, and how he knew her mother, and her mother knew him. Melissa followed behind the men, hiding behind corners. Oh my, I can't speak. I am sorry. She hid behind corners and in crevices, this time being extremely cautious of her footing. The cave was enormous, larger than it appeared on the outside. The ceiling loomed above her. Following behind the men, they led her to a canyon with a rushing river at the bottom. There was a bridge, and on the other side was a waterfall. The bridge was a simple rope bridge with planks of old wood spanning across it. If she tried to cross at the same time they did, they would feel her walking. She had no choice but to wait until they went inside the waterfall. When the 2 men got to the waterfall and went through it, their figures blurred strangely. It was like their entire bodies were changing. From where Melissa stood, she could not quite tell what happened. She shook her head. It was probably just an illusion from the light on the water. As soon as Melissa was sure that they were no longer in the waterfall, she started across the bridge. It was steadier than it looked. Melissa covered her head with her hands, expecting to be drenched by the waterfall. However, when she came through, she was completely dry. Confused, she stopped. She put her hand out to touch the water, felt its coolness, and then brought it back. Dry. Turning, she stopped abruptly and stifled a scream. Both men were no longer human. Joshua had transformed into a minotaur, and the other man into a centaur. The strange shadows finally made sense. Joshua had a battle axe slung over his back. The other man, the centaur, had two swords that hung at his waist. Pushing herself up against the wall, she tried to slow her breathing. Her heart was pounding so loudly she was worried it would be heard. The two men separated. Melissa followed Joshua since he was the one her mother seemed to know. He went down several hallways. Um, she paused, remembering that one wrong turn in a cave meant never coming out again. So she studied the path to make sure she would not get lost again. Get lost going back. Ugh, I keep on messing up my words. I'm so sorry. And someone else has joined us. Hello. um, but yeah, so she studied the path to make sure she would not get lost going back. The cave must have been man-made. There were no stalactites or any other natural features. If it was man-made, that would explain why it existed now when it had not been there before. And stop at this paragraph just to say hi to those who have joined. Hello. I'm currently reading the first chapter of my book. You can follow along with me via the via on Amazon. It has a oh my goodness, I can't think right now. It has a preview for the Kindle, so if you guys want to read along, although I am mostly done with it. But I'm glad to see you guys. Hello. Hi. You're all on Instagram. I have no one on YouTube right now, which is it's fine. So just a quick recap. My main character found a strange cave with strange men. She also found a really cool shell. She lost the shell at the cave. The cave scared her parents. She was told not to go back, but she wanted the shell, so she went anyway. So, quick recap of what has happened. So I'm going to finish reading the first chapter, and then can do a Q&A kind of thing. Or if you guys missed anything, just ask me what things you want recapped, so we can do that. So, oh, and also Melissa, the main character, Melissa, she came into this cave, and there was these men guarding it at first, and that's why her parents were scared, and they told her not to go. She went, and when they got into the cave, the men no longer looked like men. One of them, named Joshua, looked like a minotaur, and the other one she doesn't know the name of, he looks like a centaur now. So, like I said, I'll finish and then I'll answer questions. The minotaur named Joshua led her to a circular room. When they were inside, she stopped. Along the room were rows upon rows of jars next to the walls and stacked to the ceiling. They were full of bright, colorful substances, and many looked like they were filled with colorful smoke. What caught her attention the most was that they all seemed to float in the air in perfect rows without any visible support. The light from the jars cast strange shadows against each other, causing an eerie prism effect. Melissa realized that she could no longer see Joshua. She rushed up one row of jars and then turned a corner, searching down the next row. There was nothing. Nothing except endless rows of jars. Rushing around the next corner, she accidentally knocked into a jar. It toppled and then fell, shattering across the floor in a million pieces. Red smoke rose from the fragments and started to take shape, continuing to change from smoke to the solid shape of a man. It glared down with eyes of cruel fire and a devilish grin. Melissa should have ran or screamed, but she didn't. She stood there. Her voice did not seem to work, her legs stiff. She knew she was going to die. From the corner of her eye, she saw a battle axe pointed at the demon. Words in a language she could not understand were commanded toward the devilish beast. Suddenly, The evil fire went out of its eyes. The grin changed to shock, quickly replaced by anger. The pieces of the jar swirled up into the air, coming back together, the creature with it. The jar, whole again, began to drop. Melissa watched as Joshua caught the jar just before it hit the ground again. "You," he said, putting the jar back, "you are not very good at snooping around." Melissa, finally regaining movement, turned to run, but he grabbed her firmly by the arm. Writhing and wrenching, she tried to get out of his grip. When that proved futile, she screamed and shouted, trying to project her screams and insults as loudly as possible. He led her down several hallways and through several rooms, completely ignoring her every attempt to escape. Realizing they were headed deeper into the cave, she calmed and instead tried to keep track of where they were going. It was no use. The walls and ceiling seemed to change of their own accord. Abruptly, they stopped in front of a door. Melissa could hear a deep, smooth voice speaking inside. "So, who is willing to volunteer for the task?" Joshua opened the door and pushed her inside. No one within the room took any interest in them. No one seemed eager to step forward either. Finally, someone did. It was a fawn, short with polished hooves. He had his chin held high in the quick smile of a daredevil. He had a mischievous look permanently dancing across his eyes as he looked at the man who had just spoken. The person who asked the question was hard to make out. He was draped in black, sitting in the shadows. "George?" "My lord," the fawn named George began, "I will be most willing to do this task. I promise I will do what it takes, if you are willing for me to do so." The man in the shadows shifted his body, shifted his body to angle toward Melissa and Joshua. "Ah, Dardum Thunderskin, what a pleasant surprise, and who would this be?" "My lord, I have urgent news. It must be said now, privately." The masked man said in a bored voice, "I hope it is important, for your sake." He stood up and went into a side room, which Joshua pushed Melissa into. It was a small room with only a chair, more of a throne really, that had intricate forest scenes carved into it. The man in black robes took the throne, leaving Melissa and her captor to stand. With the better lighting, Melissa was finally able to see him. He wore a long black cloak. I can't speak today. Black cloak with jagged ends waving at his feet as if there was a wind he could not detect. His eyes, the only thing on his face that was not covered by an armored mask, stared into hers for a moment. His gaze was intimidating, and Melissa found that she could not look him directly in the eye. "So," the man asked, and the mask asked, "what is so important you had to bring me out of my war council? That you had to stop my preparations for the greatest plan I've had in over 3,000 years?" 3,000, Melissa thought. How is that even? "This is my niece, Melissa. She was snooping around when—" The masked man interrupted Joshua by raising his hand. "Dardum, it is not my concern about agreements and disagreements between you and your sister's family. If this is all that you have intended to tell me, I would have expected you to deal with her like any other trespasser, your family or not. Now excuse me, you have already wasted enough of my time." The masked man got up to leave when Joshua grabbed his arm. Anger flashed in his eyes. "How?" You guys are good. Just reading some of your comments. So, "how dare?" "I assure you, what I'm about to say won't waste your time. My lord, she released it. The one from the prophecy. She is the correct age. I know without a doubt she is the one." Joshua let go of his arm. The masked man's eyes were unreadable. Whatever he felt, he hid it. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! My phone! Oh no! My Instagram! Calm down. Cool down. Cool down. Oh no. Well, I think that's the end of my stream, unfortunately. No. No. Oh no. At least on Instagram it is. My phone just... My phone literally just went and said, "Temperature, iPhone needs to cool down before you can use it. It's too hot." I don't know if it's recording anymore, so I'm gonna try and see what happens. Oh no. Oh no. Well, I guess my phone decided when to end the live stream. I hope you guys might have enjoyed this. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I have to make a quick post on Instagram, explain what happened.